Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Commander's Pod today. My name is Duncan. I'm joined by Jeff.
What's up?
And Sloan.
Yellow.
And we thank you for joining us. We have a few things to discuss today. We want to talk about combos and non-bows.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about things that work together. And we're not going to be talking about CEDH wins. We're not going to be talking about Thassa's Oracle. We're not going to be talking about Demonic Consultation. But we're going to go over some combos that you can use in casual Commander. Mm-hmm. Some of them may be more powerful than others. So depending on your group, maybe some of them you may use and some of them you may not. But just some things that we like that we thought we'd pass on to you. We're going to talk about things that don't do what you think they do as normal. We're going to talk about artist proofs and what they are. And we're going to have Sloan tell us a tale from when him and Jeff had a pretty cool interaction.
Yeah, so this was a little while ago now, but we were all playing a game together, I believe, all three of us, and maybe one of our other friends, David. And Jeff was playing Atraxa, which is green, white, blue, black. And he has Sword of Truth and Justice in that deck. And so he had equipped it to Atraxa, but he also had Mother of Runes out. And Mother of Runes.
Well, let's read the sword first.
Yeah, so the sword that he had out was Sword of Truth and Justice. 3, equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from white and from blue. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. Equip cost is 2. Well, he also had Mother of Runes out, which is a white creature, a 1/1 that you tap, and target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So up until that point in the game, he kept protecting Atraxa when we tried to remove her by tapping her and then giving Atraxa protection from that color, and we couldn't kill it. Well, he equips the sword on it, and he goes to swing, and before I think he swung at Duncan. I let him hit Duncan, and then before he passed turn, I went and I targeted Atraxa to kill it with, I think it was a Beast Within, a green. And he goes like, "Oh, I'm going to tap Mother of Runes to give her protection from green." I'm like, "I'm sorry, sir, you cannot, because Atraxa has protection from white, and Mother of Runes is white. Therefore, you cannot target Atraxa with it."
Right.
And so he ended up allowing me to kill Atraxa because he put protection from white, and he couldn't protect himself then because his white creature couldn't then target Atraxa.
So let's take a second to talk about why something like this happens.
Right.
So because I have an Atraxa deck, it's a Planeswalker deck. Obviously, that sword should be in that deck.
Correct.
A Mother of Runes makes a lot of sense because protecting Atraxa is important so she can do her thing at the end of each turn. But the challenge is when you're adding this sword, because Mother of Rune has been in the deck a long time, so you add the sword into your deck. You're adding the sword because of the proliferate feature of the sword.
Right.
You're not thinking about the protection part of the sword. And so...
Well, Sloan's thinking about it. You're not.
Sloan's thinking about it, but I'm not. I'm thinking about the second part, and hence a non-bow,
right?
Which is a time where a card keeps the rest of your cards from working.
Correct.
Which is exactly what happened here. It will happen in a lot of games, but it was a really good example about what we're going to talk about today.
Right. Yeah, and so it was a cool little reaction because I was like, yeah, you can hit Duncan, that's fine. And I think it was like, because Atraxa is a 4/4 flying lifelink, and it gets 2/2, so 6 damage he took, and Jeff got the gain 6. And I was like, before you proliferate real quick, I'm going to kill Atraxa. So
you're right. And so just to be clear for people that don't know, Atraxa proliferates at end of turn, and the sword proliferates, and that's why you want them both to.
Right.
And it gives a +1/+1 counter, so now you gain more life, because when you play Atraxa, everybody attacks you. Or if you're me and you just play Magic, everyone attacks you.
But,
so...
Yep, that was a good one. That was a fun time. I didn't like getting hit. And by the way, Sloan, you're very good about, you're going to deal with something, but you definitely let them hurt somebody else if they can.
I will always, if it's not going to hit me, I'm like, great, swing away, my man.
Yep.
Like if it's not going to hurt me, great, do it. Don't care.
So many people will remove something before it's like, why wouldn't you just let him attack you?
Yeah, why would you not let him kill your other opponents for you? Like,
yeah.
So it was definitely, I thought it was just a funny play because I knew as soon as he put the sword in there, I was like, there's no way Jeff remembers that it gives protection from white, because
that's not why it's in there.
That's not why it's in there. And then sure enough, because I even thought, I was like, maybe he's going to move it back to Mother of Runes or something, maybe. Like, nope, didn't even do that.
I'd be willing to bet when you made the choice to put the sword in, you did at least think, Oh, you know what? People love to use Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares on this, and it will protect from that.
I bet I didn't think about that at all. I bet I just
I bet
said,
he saw proliferate.
this thing
and just put it in.
proliferates, it goes in the deck.
Right,
And
yeah.
out of the 100 times I've played this deck, that's the one non-bow time it happened.
Right.
Well, both
Most of the
cards
time, it's not a
independently
problem.
are still good. In
Yeah,
that
they're
deck.
both great
and the
cards.
chances of you having both are not that great.
Right.
Some might say it's 2 and 99.
True.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I think it was a funny interaction. It was cool, and it kind of like Jeff said, it feeds into what we're going to be mainly talking about today with nombos and combos.
And truly intelligent people don't learn from their own mistakes; they learn from other people's mistakes. And we know that our listeners are truly the intelligent out there.
Right.
So learn from our mistakes.
So does that mean because Jeff learned from his own mistake, he's not intelligent?
Correct?
Okay. All right, just checking.
Nombo.
All right.
I am indeed a non.
Let's move into our counterspell segment. Let's talk about how do you use stacks. And let's start with Jeff, because I know Jeff loves stacks. Stacks. He loves it.
Well, I do play some stacks in my humans deck.
You play more than that.
Yeah. I don't play a ton of stacks, but
You play any of the spells that say if a player wants to attack you, they have to pay for. You play propaganda.
Oh, so you're going to count propaganda and
that's
those
stacks.
as stacks?
That is
yeah,
stacks.
that is 100%.
That is something you have to
count
pay
those
into.
as pillow fort. That's a little different.
No, pillow fort is you just use a bunch of 1/1s to protect
No,
yourself, but you don't swing
literally
out.
those cards are known for being a pillow fort.
But
they're
just because
they're
it's pillow
stacks.
fort doesn't mean it's not also
If you
stacks.
have to pay for it, it's stacks.
I disagree with you guys. I think stacks is more I'm making you pay for doing your own stuff.
Well, but if my stuff
pillow
is
fort
attacking you,
is,
if my
in
stuff is
order
attacking
to
you,
attack
though-
me, you have to pay.
Right, but
So,
if that's what my
I
deck
disagree.
does, and that's what my deck
Some
does,
people
that
would-
is making me pay for what I do.
Yeah, some people will actually also count like Ristic Study as stacks,
No,
or
so that is not necessary. I mean, I guess it could be considered pillow fort, but pillow fort, by the definition, is the strategy is to make it undesirable or pointless for other players to attack the pillow fort player.
100%.
So more
that fits in
commonly,
that.
pillow fort would be like life gain decks that isn't weaponized.
No,
like,
I very much disagree with you. I think most people would consider those cards
I definitely think it can be
integral
both.
to a pillow fort deck.
I would say Ghostly Prison, Propaganda, stuff like that. I think they're both. I think they are pillow forty because it's like I have to spend more resources to attack you. It's not worth it. I'd rather cast more spells. But also, it's stacks because you're making them pay to do something.
So I will answer on both levels. When we're talking about those type of stacks, yes, I put them in a lot of decks that I want to limit people attacking me, obviously. And especially if I'm not going to have a lot of creatures to do so, like enchantment decks, things like that. There's one that's really good for planeswalkers. You have to be careful because you have to read the card, make sure you know what they can and can't attack, because they don't all stop all attacking.
Right.
And then as of like classical stack stuff, Kalia, I play classical stack stuff because once I've got my creatures out, I don't care if all of us are not able to do anything because I've already got my giant creatures out that are going to kill you. So I'm fine with that. And then in my humans deck, the type of stacks that I play is my deck tends to be slower because they're just humans. So I want to slow everybody else down. And so by slowing you guys down, I'm getting my little creatures out little bit by little bit. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now I kill you. That's how I play stacks, if I play any of it.
Yeah.
Sloan, how do you play it?
I kind of built a budget stacks deck where basically the point of it is I get out an artifact or an enchantment, and essentially it says that you can't, whenever you cast a spell from your hand, you have to put it into exile, and you get to cast one of the spells from exile for free. But then my commander says whenever an opponent casts a spell and they don't spend any mana, counter it. So that's not Lazav. Lavinia Azorius Renegade is her. She's white and a blue.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind stacks. Like if you want to play a stacks deck and build a whole deck around stacks, go for it. It's for me, I built that deck and I'm like I get it. It's like it's kind of funny to like not let other people play spells for like a game, but then it's like every game they're just murder you. Like they don't want you to be around because it's like I want to play Magic and you're kind of keeping them from doing that. So I get that. Like that's kind of like a feels bad. So I mean, I think in casual, every deck could or should have a little bit of stacks if you want to count Ristic Study as stacks because you're forcing them to pay extra to cast their spells.
Esper Sentinel.
Esper Sentinel, forcing you at least the first time. Mystic Remora, things like that. Like, I definitely think that they're okay. If you build an entire stax deck, I think you should let someone know that ahead of time. Like, hey, this whole deck is just stacks. And the way I win is I stacks you guys out and I outvalue you.
So
you should probably know that ahead of time. But yeah, just having stacks in all of your decks, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's actually good. I think that's a good strategy to help win. Like Jeff said, he likes to build a lot of decks that aren't really based around creatures. And so those decks he puts in the Pillow Fort cards, the Propaganda, the Ghostly Prison, things like that. Right. So I think that's, if it makes sense, I think that's a good play for sure.
Would you guys consider Blood Moon stacks?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so, because it's altering the way a person is playing the game by forcing them to have to use mana differently. So someone that has multiple non-basic lands, they're now having a bunch of mountains. So, for example, that against my Prosper deck, okay. My Prosper deck's red and black. Don't care. Against my Schmeagle deck, that's black and green, that's going to suck. Like, that blows, because you're giving me colors that aren't useful to me. So
right.
I would consider it stacks for the most part, because you're altering.
So if that's stacks, then I do play a lot of that type of thing, because I play mostly basics, and I'm going to punish you if you don't, because you built your deck badly, in my opinion. So...
yeah,
I do play a lot of that. The new one from Modern Horizons 3, the
one that does
Winter Moon.
Winter Moon, yeah.
Yeah, I play that. So I do play a lot of that. Other than that, I only play stacks when it's like obvious that I would have the advantage over. Like, for instance, I don't play Null Rod, where you can't activate artifacts, unless I'm playing a lands deck where I don't really have artifacts.
Right.
If I do, then I'm going to be like, I'm just going to throw this in here because it's just too good not to.
Right.
So I kind of, other than that, but I will speak here a little bit for Lizard, who, as you guys know, our listeners may remember, he is a heavy stacks player.
Right, yeah.
And I know
sure.
Jeff would disagree with this statement, but I can tell you from watching him play games over the past several years, he plays stacks very evenly. He does not play one-sided stacks. Most of the stacks he plays affects him as well.
Yeah.
And,
I agree with that.
Well, not that part. But most people don't, like Sloan said, attack him outright and just try and kill him, because what ends up happening is he's keeping everybody down evenly.
Right.
And if you remove pieces at the wrong point, like, for instance, a big one is if he prevents people from casting more than one spell a turn.
Right.
You take him out.
And then you can let somebody.
Now the next player gets to cast more spells. You didn't. You give them the advantage.
Right.
If he played something like Winter Moon, not Winter Moon, Winter Orb, you can't untap more than 2 permanents.
Right.
If you take that out on your turn, well, now you didn't get to untap, but the next player does.
Right.
So you're releasing it to the wild. So what ends up happening with him is people usually, they know that what he's doing is his win style is he'll stacks everybody down until he gets the cards he needs in hand, and then he'll remove his own stacks and try and win.
Right.
So people will try and like stop him before that happens, but they tend to let him go because removing the wrong piece at the wrong time can free up the wrong person is what ends up happening.
Yeah, I mean, because I will say there's been a couple of times where like he did his stacks where it was like each player can only attack with one creature and each player can only block with one creature.
Yep.
And I had a creature out with Menace. I'm like, that's great. I was like, I'm 100% down for this. Like, because no one can ever block me and I can just swing in with, immunity basically. And so, there are times where he does that. Now, I will say he does often, though, put additional punishment in for the opponent, but it still hurts him too. So the classic example is he has a mono red deck with the red god, is what we call him. Ogre. And he says if a permanent you control would deal less than Ogre's damage to a single target, it deals equal to his power instead. Yeah. So he has, like, for example, the barbs that whenever you play a land, you take 2 damage. Well, when Ogre's out, it's actually 4. It's still only 2 for him.
Right.
But it's 4 for everybody else.
Right. But that's the point of that particular
right.
deck.
So there are ways where he'll still be taking the effects of the stacks but he's taking less of the effect of the stacks.
In that example, yes, but that is not most of his stacks.
No, but he does have
specific
he does have decks that are like that are more. Yes, it's gonna hurt everybody, but it's gonna hurt you guys more. And then he has some decks where it's like, no, we're all getting hurt equally. And then he has some decks where it's just like, no one's allowed to play Magic until I say so.
Yep.
So
yeah, which the only time I ever had a problem is when I sat down and out of the 5 of us, 2 of them were playing stacks.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was a long game, and I was like, this is stupid.
I think if you let people know, if you're playing a full-on stacks deck, I think you should let people know. If you have stacks pieces in your deck and it's not like a main theme, you don't need to tell anybody.
Yeah,
Who cares?
and
Every deck should have some
Lizard,
form of
to
stacks.
his credit, usually will introduce himself. Hi, my name's Lizard. I play Dirty Magic.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because that's most people view stacks as Dirty Magic.
True.
So I brought up the human stack with Rick. It's Rick Steadfast leader in it, but it has a decent amount of stocks like Boromir. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was cast, no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, that's really good because I'm playing fair Magic with humans. So if someone's trying to play free spells, it's a big problem. Containment Priest. If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it in instead.
Yeah.
Which that can actually be a non-bow in that deck sometimes because it can make
Some
tokens.
of your stuff not work.
But it typically slows the opponent down more. Draenith Magistrate. This is a classic stacks piece.
Everyone hates
your
that
opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands, so you can't cast your commander. Esper Sentinel, which we talked about. Sanctifier Envec. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards that are red or black from all graveyards. If a black or red permanent spell or card not on the battlefield would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead, so it shuts down graveyard plays.
You play the guy that's your turn is your turn, right?
Yep. Which I wasn't sure to count.
Grand
that,
Abolisher.
but Grand Abolisher.
Yeah.
Sanctum Prelate. As it enters the battlefield, choose a number. Non-creature spells with the mana value equal to the chosen number can't be cast. So you can choose their commander, or if you know their deck and they're going for a certain combo, you can just shut that combo down, which is very important in like a fair tribal kindred deck because you've got to stop them from doing their nonsense. Thalia, Heretic Cathar, creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Again, it just slows them down. I wouldn't. That's a lot of stacks, honestly.
Yeah,
in there. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
But again,
and I don't think that's all of it.
That's a lot of it. It's but
because you have Ghostly Prison in there too. I think.
Yeah, but again, I think that's Pillow Fort. But yes,
by itself, you might be able to call it Pillow Fort. When you have all those stack pieces, that's 100% stack.
So the idea here though is it doesn't really stop other people from playing. What it does is it says, okay, your lands come in tapped, slow you down a little bit. Okay, you can't cheat out cards without paying their mana. Okay, the only one that's a little more harsh is you can't play your commander. That's pretty harsh.
Well, and the one that says you can't play spells of a certain mana value.
Yes.
For instance, the most common one, you may not do this, but the most common thing people choose is 2.
Yes.
Because that's the most common mana cost of cards in a commander deck.
Yeah. No, that's 100% what you do.
So yeah, no, for sure. But so I think that's a good sampling of how we all use stacks.
Yeah.
Jeff will use it when he likes it. He doesn't like it when he doesn't like it.
I don't like full stacks decks, but certainly the humans is the most stacksy. But then again, I'm just playing humans, so I gotta get a little help.
He says, but that deck's that's okay. It's not like it's garbage.
Yeah, don't let him say that.
It'll 100% kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is not a bad deck by any stretch of imagination.
But what's aggravating you today? Let's talk about that, Jeff.
Well,
let's be your therapist. What do you need to get off your chest?
Well, so
besides that shirt.
No, this is my Nadu shirt, man. This is my Nadu here. Happy shirt. I don't like how difficult it is to know what's in decks and what's in secret layers. And what I mean by that is like, okay, so this set that's coming out, does it have serialized cards or does it not have serialized cards? What's my chance of getting the serialized cards? Then they have like these special cards that are in the decks now, where you get this special slot card. And then in secret layers, a lot of people may not know this, but there are secret cards in secret layers
But those are 100% secret.
Yeah,
Unlike
they're-
the first thing, which I'm going to point out.
Yeah,
in a
you
minute.
don't know what they are at all.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
you come to find out, oh, holy crap.
I could have
some of
gotten
these
this.
were very valuable.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, I just don't think, obviously what they're doing is they want to incentivize you to buy decks without knowing what's in them. That's a lot of gambling. I really am not a fan of Magic should be very careful on this. I just don't like that. What Duncan's going to talk about, you guys really need to listen to, because there are ways to know. But my point of what my aggravation is, you shouldn't have to be that much of an investigator to know what you're getting when you spend $120.
Right.
I understand there's percentages in what cards you get in the deck, but you ought to be able to pick the box up, look at the box, and know what things are going to come in it, and you cannot. And I just think that's not acceptable.
So I'll address the thing I was going to address, and then I'll talk to the other thing. So you can read the release notes before each set comes out, which tells you new mechanics, new cards to watch for, if there's special slots and what might be in those special slots.
Right.
That is a single page you can read before you buy a box, which is a good amount of money.
Yep.
That I suggest everybody do. So, Jeff, from now on, before you do buy a box, you should read that.
But my point stands. It's if there's that, put it on the freaking box.
But here,
Like, it is stupid that it's that hard to
It is too
know.
much information to put on the box.
But even furthermore, though, to his other point, it doesn't tell you how many serialized cards are going to be in there, or if any, or it doesn't like.
It doesn't go into very much detail. It'll say
Right,
there's
it's-
serialized cards, but it doesn't say that is the thing I will also address, which I do think shame on Wizards for being so shady about this forever. They do not state how many of each card is printed. They do not state how many printings of each foil version there are. Nobody knows. It is just the rares. We have no evidence to prove that rares are any rarer than an uncommon.
We have less information about the percentages of a freaking Magic box than we do if I go to a casino and gamble.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is wild. And if they don't clean it up, I'm telling you right now, I'm not a big fan of government overreach and stuff. But I'm telling you right now, they don't clean it up soon, just like they did for microtransactions in video games, governments will get involved.
No, they won't.
I think they will,
Magic's
because
been
it's
doing this for years, and
microtransactions happen for a long. It's not
no,
right.
but it's not even on the radar. Like, you don't hear anybody talking about
Maybe
this.
it could be.
It could be, maybe.
Yeah.
If
I
we
just-
make
I don't like
it happen, maybe. But nobody's going to do that. But yes, I do say shame on Wizards for being so shady about how many printings of things there are. How much did you make of it? How many of each card is available out there in the wild? The only one that we've ever known about is the 1 ring.
Yeah.
That's it, because we knew there was one.
Well, and the
And
other
on the
serialized
serialized cards, you know
they-
how many of that particular
one,
serialized
right.
card.
And we don't always take this much time. But I'm gonna, a lot of my aggravating sections are sort of like in jest. I'm generally aggravated about this because it has got me so many times. That secret layer card, these other things. Just tell us the truth. We'll still gamble. We're still gonna buy stuff.
Right.
Just be a little bit more honest. It's wild. I don't like it.
Now, the secret layers, I will say, unless you go to the page, you never know when secret layers are coming out.
Right.
But even on the page, it does not say, and you might get one of these cards.
Correct.
They want it to be 100% be a surprise. And their argument is it's a reward. It is not supposed to be something you're trying to purchase. It is a reward, kind of like giving a giveaway.
But we're not
for your-
idiots, and we all know what it is. It's a way for them to incentivize you to buy stuff, hoping you'll get some card that you don't even know.
I mean,
might
here's the thing.
exist.
So they had the most wanted cards they did for
Yeah.
the Thunder Junction.
Yeah.
Secret layers they had.
Yep.
And I was not interested in any of those cards, so I did not get any. And then afterwards, I learned that there was Norin the Worry, which is one of the decks I love playing.
Yep.
And they had done that as one of the secret cards you could get.
Right.
So I did go out and buy that on the secondary market by itself.
Right.
To get that. And
Which
it's
sometimes you can do
awesome.
that, but sometimes they're incredibly expensive.
Oh yeah, no. So there's like persistent petitioners,
Yeah.
which is like a very common card,
Right.
they did a secret layer where there were
That you can have multiples of in your deck. You
Yes,
can have as many as you
as
want.
many as you want.
So it obviously makes the card very expensive because now you need 40 of them.
right, but the common ones are not expensive at all. Like you can find
They're
them.
still like $1 or something, and I think
don't
they're
think,
uncommon.
no, you're thinking of the black card, Shadowborn Apostle.
No, I think they are. I'll
Okay,
look them
you
up
can
while
look
you're
it up.
talking.
But so what they did there is they did a secret layer, and they had secret versions of these cards,
Yeah.
and it was insane. And again, now here's the problem: they didn't say how many of each printing, but they did like dozens of versions, I think, of the secret arts.
Right.
And there was one that had pigeons on it, I remember, and they looked like gang member pigeons, which I don't understand anyway. But that was one of them. And for a while, that one was like hundreds of dollars. And now I think it's down to 40. And there's a different one that's like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And there's one where I think it looked like a Michael Jackson like clone or something.
Yeah.
And that one's worth like $40. But I mean, just
And there are ones that are worth hundreds of dollars.
right. Did you find
Yeah, it's $1. They're $1 each.
they're $1 each? Okay. Well, that's
And
surprising.
they've been higher, but they were just reprinted.
Right.
And I know because I bought a bunch. When it was reprinted, I was like, I better buy them now because it'll be the cheapest they'll be.
Right. But so yeah, the secret layers, they're very shady about what those secret cards are. And I don't know, to be honest, I don't think it's the best decision. If you knew that there was these cards that could be like only 3 of this one particular card are going to be sent out as the spare,
Right.
as the extra card, that might boost your sales incredibly.
No, the reason why their sales are getting boosted is because you have to buy these sets even when you don't want them because you never know what you might get. That's the whole design of gambling.
Well, but I think what Duncan's saying though is if you just put out a list of, hey, here's the secret card for the secret layers. Here's what you have a chance of getting. Instead, he might have actually bought the secret layer with Norn in
Yeah,
it
because I would wanna try
I
and
know
get it.
Norn's in
But-
there.
but
I have
you're-
a chance to get him, which would be really cool.
But you're
to
missing
pull.
the big vision is that people are buying these sets when they don't even want them because they know there might be a special card that might be in that deck. So yeah, they missed out on his one purchase, but they gained tons of other purchases
It's possible,
on things people didn't
but
want.
as
I
many
think-
as
I think
secret
those
I
layers-
people-
guarantee you that's why they're
I
doing
think
it.
those people who are buying are going to buy it regardless, but
I
they
don't-
could have gotten more people to buy it if they knew what potentially secret cards
Yeah,
are.
I mean, there's
disagree.
so many secret layers. There's not a single person that could buy all of them unless they're extremely wealthy. And then I don't feel bad if they're buying them just to get the secret stuff.
Yeah,
If
a
that's-
ton of people are doing that.
then they have a lot of money and more
There's a
power to
lot
them.
of whales in Magic. There's a lot of people.
mean-
I mean, you're probably a whale.
I am, but I would never have the money to be able to buy all the secret layers.
No, not all of them, but yeah, there are people that definitely like the. Sometimes, if you watch Secret Layers, a lot of times the whole set thing, when they sell the whole thing, that sells out before the individuals.
Yeah.
Which that is wild.
Well, it's a savings, and so people are like, "Well, I'm gonna."
yeah, and because
But
now they
here's the
have
thing.
more chance to get all those secret cards too.
I don't know if that's true. I think you only get one.
No, you get it per each set, per
really?
each. Yeah.
I haven't paid attention when I got
The
them,
only
but-
time I've ever bought the whole thing was with the Dragon very early on. And each little box thing I think comes with one of the secret cards.
Yeah, and it's definitely not fair how they do it. It's sometimes fair. Like sometimes no matter what you get, it's an extra card you weren't going to get otherwise.
I think it's beyond not fair. I think it's predatory.
Well, but let me finish my statement.
yeah.
So sometimes you get a card, you're guaranteed a card that is not in the normal. But I've also gotten times when I get the secret layer and I just get an extra copy of something that was already in it.
Yeah, that happened to me for
So I don't think it's consistent. And in that, there's a lot of
Stranger
levels of not
Things.
fair, is what I was trying to get at.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
different
no.
levels of not fair.
Sure.
And there's some things that are more fair. But yeah, I just think in general, I agree with your aggravation. I just think in general, they need to be more transparent, give us more information, make us make informed decisions. And
We'll keep buying from you guys, but for heaven's sakes.
yeah.
For sure.
Let's move on to that doesn't do what you think it does. And today we're talking about non-bows. Non-bows are combos that don't work at all. They do not work the way you think they do.
They are
They
not
actually do not
combos.
go together. So one of the ones I had, and I'm going to do the bottom one first, guys, is because it's more commonly it's more commonly
played.
found.
Yeah.
And that's Nekusar the Mind Razor and Days Undoings. Now, Nekusar the Mind Razor, at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Nekusar the Mind Razor deals 1 damage to that player. Okay? there's a lot of feels about this guy as a commander. A lot of people don't like him. They feel like he's too OP, but regardless, you do see him out there a lot.
Right.
So in Nekisira, you want as many wheels as you can get usually. You want to
Just wheel people to
wheel,
death.
wheel. You know, even if it's a bad wheel, you want to wheel.
It's still really good.
It's really good.
Oh my gosh.
But Days Undoing states, each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards. Well, that's great, right? Except that in the same paragraph, it says, if it's your turn, end the turn. It's a sorcery. It's most likely you're going to be your turn.
Right.
Because you end the turn, all those damage triggers are on the stack. And the turn states you exile all things from the stack.
Right.
So people draw their cards and take 0 damage.
Yeah. Yeah, does
not work the way you thought it did.
Yeah, because you're ending the turn, you're immediately moving to the end step, like you said, which is clearing the stack.
So, and here's something that I did not learn until I think I kind of knew it, but I never really thought about it. And I know I've been bit by it before. On EDH Rec, the recommended cards that they show, and this is why I don't like using it very much, it will show you cards that don't work.
Right.
Because they're in 40% of the decks or 15% of the decks.
Right.
Or because they were in the commander pre-con and therefore they're still in there. That happens
because
a lot.
they're being used.
Yep.
Just in general. So I wish that there was a way that EDH Rec filtered out things from the list that didn't work.
Well, you can look at people put up. So when you go to EDH Rec, you can look at specific decks based off of that, and sometimes that can help because typically if someone's building the specific deck, they'll not put those in there.
So the rare times I use it, it's because I've gotten a good core of stuff together, but I'm like, well, I need a few more cards. Let me see what some other people are doing.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at one deck and see what he's doing. I want to see what lots of people are doing to get a better idea of.
Well, and I think
because if I look at one person's
And you
deck,
can
I'm
do
actually
that.
more likely that they could be an idiot. I don't know them. They could be playing things
well,
that
you
don't
don't
work
have
at
to
all.
just look at one deck, Duncan. My point is you can look at all kinds of decks.
Right, but that's
that people
a lot
have
more
built
work
there.
than looking at a list.
It
EDH Rec,
can
to
be.
me, it should not be showing you things that shouldn't be in the deck. It should only be showing you things that should.
Well, but again, because of they're basing it off of what people are playing, they don't have control of what other people are putting in their deck.
Well, but they have control over what they show you.
No,
But that's
because
not
I
the
think
point of
that's
EDH Rec.
that's not the point of EDH Rec. They're when you go to EDH Rec, the whole point of it is we're going to show you the highest play cards at this price point.
But they also
at
have
this
like
price
high
point, at this
synergy
price
cards,
point.
then have a low synergy cards section where it's at least sorted so that the ones that don't really work well.
They do. They do. The low
have-
synergy cards won't show up as much. Like they'll.
Because
it's
it
not
tells
true.
you a percentage.
If 40%, because Days Undoing, I believe when I looked, 40% of the Nekuzar players are playing it.
But it tells you the synergy. What's the synergy?
What do you mean it tells me?
When
the
you
synergy?
go to the card and you look at it, it tells you percentage of people playing it.
Yeah.
And then it tells you, I think, the synergy underneath that.
I don't ever remember. Hold on, let me pull that up.
It
I
might.
know it tells you somewhere. We'll have to do it.
There was a high synergy section, but I don't think there's something that tells you.
There's
how
a top
much.
10 card section, and then there's a high synergy section, and then they break it down into then the different segments: enchantments, artifacts, creatures, utility lands, utility artifacts.
Yeah,
lands.
it has a synergy rating right under that.
Oh,
Plus
yeah.
18% synergy.
Okay, so I never noticed that before.
Yeah. Oh, we're all learning.
Well, I
So,
mean, you
good.
Duncan is. I'm not. I knew that. So
Yeah,
you're
well,
not.
I knew
you
that too.
Yeah.
But, we learn
Something-
other
something
things.
about-
Duncan teaches us all the time.
Something about you're intelligent if you learn from other people's mistakes or something like that. Someone said earlier.
Yeah, well,
But yeah, so EDH Rec is a good general source to use. And again, it's funny because like they do base it off of the percentage or whatever of decks playing it and using it, and then they show the synergy of said card in the deck. So, but I will say it is funny because with Nekuzar specifically, people only, like Duncan said, they're just thinking about wheels, and it says draw cards. They're like, great, it's going in.
Right.
They don't really think about it. Now there are ways to cheat out sorceries, obviously. And Nekuzar is blue, black, red, right?
yep.
So there are ways to give you the ability to cast at instant speed. And so you could technically play it on someone else's turn, and then they still would take the damage. But you're then committing another card.
we're starting with non-bows, right? Duncan?
Yeah, Nombos.
So
You
Go
have
ahead.
one?
Yeah.
Did you want to move on?
yeah,
Okay.
my we can come back to this though, but
No,
you're
no,
looking
no.
stuff up.
It's fine. I'm just checking
The
something.
the biggest non-bow that gets me every time, and we talked about a sword earlier.
Yeah, protection.
It's another protection spell, and that's Lightning Greaves. And Lightning Greaves is an amazing card, one of the best cards in
Yeah,
Commander.
just so everyone knows, it's an artifact. You pay 2. It's an equipment. Equipped creature has Shroud and Haste. Equip cost is 0, which is why a lot of people love it.
Right. So, but a lot of people will say the boots are better.
The lightning
boots.
Swiftfoot boots.
Yeah,
correct.
because the Lightning Greaves gives Shroud,
Correct.
and the Swiftfoot boots gives
Hexproof.
Hexproof, and Hexproof doesn't stop you from targeting it; it just
Correct.
stops others from targeting.
Opponents, correct.
The problem with Lightning Greaves is there's no unequip cost, so you have to have another creature. So if you ever just have one creature, now you can't target your own creature, and that's can be a pretty big problem. I would say that's the non-bow that gets me the most.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a common one, especially in newer play, because they don't realize that just because it says equip 0, that doesn't mean unequip 0. What that means is you can move it to another creature for 0.
Right.
So that a lot of times is something that gets people, and the funny thing is too, sometimes if you equip the stuff in the wrong order and you only have one creature out, like if you do the boots first and then you then get another equipment and you put it out, you can't then equip that equipment.
That's right.
And so, making sure if you are building an equipment deck or what they're known as Voltron decks that kind of stack a bunch of stuff on one creature and swings out.
Most people won't play that one in a equipment deck because Swiftfoot Boots does allow you and does a similar.
Right.
And most of those decks are built around avoiding equipping costs.
Right.
But sometimes some people might be out there listening.
But you still have it just for the sake of, because it's more protection and you could stack, so because the other thing is people will remove your boots really quickly. They'll destroy them and then your creature becomes targetable and then you're in trouble. Right. So, but you can stack it correctly to where you stack all the other stuff first and then you put Lightning Greaves on last and then you're good.
So I did just want to point out real quick. So I looked it up. It took a while to find it because you can't search for a card within the list that I found. But anyway, on EDH Rec, it says 13% synergy on the Days Undoing with Nekuzar.
Which is pretty low synergy.
But it should be much lower.
No, I mean...
You don't want to wheel for just wheel's sake. You want to wheel to do the damage. It does not work with the commander.
But because, like I was pointing out before, though, because you're accessing blue with that commander, there's ways for you to cast it at instant speed. Because that ability only works if you cast it on your turn.
That's true. So I guess if you consider that too, but it's still very
which is what.
to me.
But again, that's why it's only 13% synergy. If you look at some of those other cards, it's like 80% synergy or 90% synergy.
There were very few that were that high, but yeah.
Yeah, mostly it's 40-50%.
Yep.
So, but that's the point.
But it does make me feel better. But I've never seen that. Like I said, I don't use EDH Rec much. Yeah. So I've never seen that synergy rating, but that is good to know.
I just use EDH Rec because sometimes you'll see a card like, I've never even seen that card before.
Yeah.
There's no way I would have got to that card.
Yeah.
You can search for the cards certainly through Gatherer and stuff, but sometimes anyways, this is not EDH section. So we're on non-bows. We got any more?
Did you have one?
Yeah. So kind of going back to what I talked about in the section is the protection stuff. So a lot of times if you have like the swords that say protection from white and blue or whatever, a lot of times you'll not be able to do what you want to do now because you have protection now instead. And so one of the things that happens specifically is with enchantment auras. So there's been a couple of times where I've seen people, they play some enchantment auras and then I go to target their creature, for example, let's say with Swords to Plowshare, and I'm going to tap this or I'm going to pay for this. I'm going to give my creature protection from white. Well, all your white enchantment auras fall off. And they don't realize that because they're just thinking of your spell not being able to target it. And so a lot of times people will have these enchantment auras on their creature if they're that color. And then you got to tell them, just so you know, all those enchantment auras that are white, they're all going to fall off. You're not going to have any of them anymore. Yep. So making sure when you're doing your protection stuff that it's not something that's going to target your own things that are already attached to your creature or keep you from being able to continue to target your creature. Because I will say the Lightning Greaves in my Aragorn deck, which is green, white, blue, red, his abilities trigger and like he gets to give target creature +4/+4. So if I give him protection from green, which he is, I can't give him +4/+4 then, which happens a lot with Lightning Greaves. I can't target him to give him that bonus then. So, but that deck does produce a lot of creatures really quickly, so that's usually not a big issue. But just making sure whenever you give yourself protection from a color, then someone goes to do it, you're not dropping off all your own stuff. I see that happen a lot.
I'll say this too. just because it's a non-bow doesn't mean you can't have it in your deck.
Right.
Many times it's fine. And it's going to be like a backup plan or as necessary evil. It's if you get too worried about this, you can easily miss out on some really cool opportunities. So non-bows, they don't mean you can't do them. Just recognize that
when they're
every
out.
once in a while they're going to cause a problem.
So another one is when something makes a creature that's also a food or a creature that's also a treasure.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It gives them an additional type, basically.
Well, an additional type of food, treasure, or clue specifically.
Right.
And people want to put Academy Manufactor in there.
Right.
Doesn't work. It's not the way you think it does.
Yeah.
So, like for instance, Brenard, Ginger Sculptor. Each creature you control that's a food or golem gets +2/+2 and has trample. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 food golem artifact creature in addition to its other types, and it has pay 2, sack this artifact, you gain 3 life. Academy Manufactor says if you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead create one of each.
Correct.
So what happens is Manufactor is a replacement effect. Instead of getting that 1/1 food golem artifact, you get a regular food, a regular treasure, and a regular clue.
Right.
Which may still be okay.
It may, but you need to know what it's doing. It is not making those creatures, which will then also get +2 and +2 and have trample.
And Academy Manufacture is not a may ability. You must do it. So if
you can't say, well, I'm not going to use that.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. It's going to happen,
you are.
period. You can't choose to not use it. You have to do it. So again, it is a non-bow. In certain circumstances, it could be good because you're getting mana back instead. But if your whole shtick is I'm going to try to make a bunch of little gingerbread tokens and murder people with the gingerbread man, probably not the best card to put in there.
You're going to have a way to deal with it yourself.
Yeah. And Shelob, who's a spider who makes other spiders, does a spider, makes foods out of the creatures when they die.
Right.
But they're still creatures. Again, same idea.
Yeah, same concept.
It won't work the way you think it works.
Yep.
Is there any other non-bows you guys wanted to talk about? No? All right. So today, let's move on to the combos. That's our main topic of the day. So these are things we do not want CEDH combos. Some of these may be higher powered, so maybe some groups will be more accepting, but others are perfectly fine in even low-powered decks. But ways to kind of do some cool combo synergy.
Right.
So one of the ones I put in many of my blue decks because I feel like it's more than fair because of how much it costs.
Right.
is Omniscience and Enter the Infinite.
Correct.
And I've talked about it before. Omniscience, cards in your hand, you don't have to pay their mana cost. And Enter the Infinite, you draw your entire library and put one card from your hand back on top of your library.
Correct.
So now I can cast them all for free.
Correct.
So
and that combo I think is 23 mana total, right? Or 22 mana total. Enter the Infinite's 11, and Omniscience is 10.
Well, if you play Omniscience
Enter the
first,
Infinite's 12, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Yeah.
12, and Omniscience is 10. But yeah, if you play Omniscience first.
Correct. You played 10. You were going to play Enter the Infinite.
Right.
For
but
I
to
have
be
played it
fair,
the
if you
opposite way, too.
play Omniscience, that's fine. You should be winning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't even need Enter the Infinite.
Oh, yeah. So that's a good one. That's one that is, if you get to do it, is always kind of fun, especially if you literally just pay 10 mana for Omniscience and everyone's just looking at you like, yeah, we got nothing. It's like, okay, well, I definitely win then because here comes the rest of my deck.
Which Duncan plays that combo. He's got to do it many times. The ones I'm going to talk about, I play these combos. I've done them multiple times.
Yeah.
So
that is a
can
fun
be
one.
done.
Yep.
Not that hard.
Yeah.
Sloan, you got one?
Yeah. So the one I'm going to do is one that I used to run a lot, Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood.
That's a classic.
So Sanguine Bond is whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life, and that's 3 black. And then Exquisite Blood is whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life, 4 and a black. So 10 mana total to get the combo out. And then you have to force someone to lose life or you gain life somehow. And then you just infinitely start pinging people for that amount of life. So that's a combo that essentially just loops. Now, the one thing about this one, though, is it is technically interactable, just like yours is. So if you target one person, because you have to pick somebody and you start kind of going through it. If you don't target the right person first, they could let the other two people die and then they could stop it and then they could, so they could interact with it and wait for you to kill other people. And then they're like, all right, before you go to target me, when you go to do your next trigger, I'm going to blow up the one thing so that stops this. Yeah. And then the other two people will be really pissed at you.
That's why you should spread it out.
But, and then the other one that you do with Exquisite Blood is Aetherflux Reservoir. So that's a 4-cost artifact, and it says...
But to be clear, that's when you've got 50 life.
Right, because it says pay 50 life, you then deal 50 damage to target player.
You'd have to have 51 life.
51.
Yeah, you would want 51 life to have that go off. So, but the reason why that one works
actually,
with Exquisite Blood...
you wouldn't, because you gain the life as you lose the life. It's just like when you...
Don't you do... because it all resolves
No,
at the
because
same time.
it's a pay. So it's pay 50 life, colon.
Oh, right.
It's part of the pay cost.
Okay, so then you're right.
You have to have 51 life. Yeah. So, but because whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Essentially, if you have 51 life, you hit somebody for 50, you gain back 50. So you're back at 51.
Now you hit the next person.
You keep paying it over and over again and blow people up. So that's kind of the two pretty well-known combos with Exquisite Blood that happen.
Jeff, did you have a combo?
Yeah, so Animar, Soul of Elements, green, blue, red, legendary creature elemental, protection from white and from black. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on Animar, Soul of Elements. Creature spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast for each 1/1 counter on Animar. So Animar goes with a card called Ancestral Statue, which what's fun about combos sometimes is they use cards that are like, this is not a good card until it is, and then it's broken. And the Ancestral Statue is 4 colorless, artifact creature golem. It's an uncommon. Actually, it might even be a common. When Ancestral Statue enters the battlefield, return a non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. So essentially, once you have 3 counters on Animar, which is very easy because you play colorless spells or morph cards, then Ancestral Statue comes down, and then you put it back to your hand. And you just keep doing that until Animar is gigantic.
Well, Animar is just when you cast a creature. Animar is just when you cast a creature spell, right?
Right. Yeah, ETB doesn't matter.
Yeah, so you just cast any creatures. You don't have to cast colorless cards. You can just cast any creatures and you get a counter on them.
You could have spent mana on something.
Sure.
And then once you get...
The idea of this is Animar is going to get gigantic, number 1.
Right.
So you're going to be... You could probably kill someone with that. And then 2, you have... unlimited mana now. So typically cards in your hand a lot of times with Animar are going to be colorless. So you're playing Giant Eldrazi and you're just doing gross stuff.
That's actually not typical. That's how you do it. And I want to point out, he's brought up 3 commanders, right? He's brought up Kalia. He's brought up Atraxa. Is some of this from the last episode?
No, Atraxa was this episode.
Okay. And he's brought up Animar, all 3 of which are considered very powerful commanders, so we could tell what Jeff plays.
Old school classic. And then my other one is Zaxara the Exemplary. So this is colorless, black, green, blue. Legendary creature, Nightmare Hydra, Death Touch. Tap, add 2 mana of any one color. Whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, create a 0/0 green Hydra creature token. Then put X 1/1 counters on it. And then there's actually 2 cards that go infinite with this. One of them is called Freed from the Real, which is 2 and a blue, enchantment aura, enchant creature, blue, semicolon here, tap, enchanted creature, blue, untap, enchanted creature. Basically, the way it works with both these cards, the other card is Penman's Aura. I won't read it. It does the same thing. Essentially, what it says is when you tap Zaxara, you get to add 2 mana of any one color. This costs 1 blue to untap, so now you have unlimited.
So
mana.
To be clear, though, that combo works with any creature that taps for 2 mana, where 1 of the mana is.
So
blue.
like Selvala, it works with.
Yeah.
Which is what you might have been remembering is what we talked about this morning. But yeah, I happen to do it in Zaxara because if you're gonna do something gross, do it in a deck where they make Hydras.
So yep, that's a good one. So one I have is Peregrine Drake, flying 2/3, costs 4 and a blue. When Peregrine Drake enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. Right, so basically he's free. Then you play Archaeomancer. So first you would cast Ghostly Flicker, you can flicker Peregrine Drake. So you can tap all your mana, use 3 of the mana to cast Ghostly Flicker, flicker Peregrine Drake, untap 5 lands.
Yep.
Then you cast Archaeomancer because Ghostly Flicker reads, exile 2 target artifact creatures under lands you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under your control. So you can flicker him and something else. But the other part that makes it a combo is Archaeomancer. Archaeomancer says when Archaeomancer enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, return Ghostly Flicker to your hand. Now you flicker both Archaeomancer and Peregrine Drake. And now you just keep looping it over and over and over again. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you guys will notice as you're dealing with combos and looking for combos, there are cards that are classic combo things. So like we mentioned, Freed from the Real, Penguin's Aura.
Oh, hold on. You've done 2.
What were your 2 that were used a lot? I'm not doing a new combo. I'm just saying watch out for these type of cards. You've just mentioned Peregrine's Drake. That's huge. You see that, you know a combo is coming.
Shrieking Drake is another one. If you see Shrieking Drake,
the 2 life ones, the exquisite blood
and Sanguine Bond.
You know you're getting comboed. What you've got to start to figure out is
Grim
what
Monolith
are these cards?
is another one that when you see it, it's only in there because it's a combo. It's not an ideal card.
That's right.
It costs a lot of physical money.
Yep.
To have it. It's only in there for a combo. If you see Grim Monolith, danger, Will Robinson.
100%.
Sloan, you got another combo?
Yeah, so the next one I got is Bond of Discipline, which is 4 and a white. Sorcery, tap all creatures your opponents control. Creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. And then Sunblast Angel, which is 4 white. Creature angel flying. Whenever Sunblast Angel enters the battlefield, destroy all tapped creatures. So basically it's a board wipe with 2 creatures, but you get to keep all your creatures and everyone else's creatures die.
Yep. And which is, that's a fair combo.
Yeah, 10 mana.
There were one spell, one-sided board wipes, so.
Yeah, so there are infinite combos and there are combos.
Right.
So that's not an infinite combo. It is a combo.
Yeah. So it's 11 mana. So you're dumping a bit of mana into it to get it off. But it is one of those combos where it's kind of fun to pull off because then all your creatures have lifelink. No one else has really creatures to defend with. So you can hit somebody, gain a bunch of life back, and kind of put yourself in a better position while your opponents are trying to play catch up. So, but that's a fun mono white one. That's cool to pull off.
That's a good one. Jeff, do you have another one?
Yeah. So there are.
Jeff.
Yeah. So there are. Teamer Sabertooth is another one of those ones. If you see Teamer Sabertooth, you're done. Like, stop it or gross stuff's going to happen. But one that I thought was kind of fun was Zakama Primal Calamity. 6 red, green, white. Vigilance, reach, trample. This card's so gross. When Zakama Primal Calamity enters the battlefield, if you cast it, untap all lands you control. So, and Teamer Sabertooth is going to let you bounce it back to your hand. So you're just going to end up with infinite mana. And on top of that, when Zakama comes down, he has a 2 and a red. Zakama deals 3 damage to target creature. And you could do that as many times as you want. 2 and a green, destroy target artifact or enchantment. 2 and a white, you gain 3 life. So essentially with this infinite combo, you now have destroyed all the creatures, all artifacts, all enchantments, and you've gained unlimited life.
And Teamer Sabertooth it's 2 and a green, right, for that?
2 green, green.
2 green.
Creature cat, 1 and a green. You may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Teamer Sabertooth gains indestructible till end of turn.
Yeah, that, just so people know, that is also considered a more powerful card to use for combos is Teamer Sabertooth. Yeah. It is a very high power card that people use to go infinite with.
And not commonly found. You don't see that.
Yeah, you do not see that out in the wild at all.
If somebody went to find that card.
Yeah. That means they built a deck around being able to use it to win the game because that is a very powerful card that people use to combo off specifically with.
Yeah, it's old school too, man. It's been around a long time.
Yeah, but you don't see it in a lot of standard games because essentially when that hits, the game's over because they're about to combo off and just murder everybody.
So this is one I have in one of my decks. I have a Jansen deck. John Johnson. So Jan Jansen, Chaos Crafter, reads, he's a Gnome Artificer 3/3, costs a red, a white, and a black. He has haste. Tap, sacrifice an artifact creature, create 2 treasure tokens. Or tap, sacrifice a non-creature artifact, create 2 1/1 colorless construct artifact tokens. Then you have Liquimetal Torque, which is a 2-cost artifact that says tap, add a colorless, or tap, target non-land permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types until end of turn. And then you have Clock of Omens. Clock of Omens costs 4. It's an artifact that reads tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, untap target artifact. So you tap Liquimetal Torque, making Jansen an artifact himself. Then you tap 2 of the thing. You tap him, make 2 things. Tap those 2 things, untap him. Infinite creation of various things. So
Yeah, so
that'll
that's
get it done.
Yeah,
you'll
that's
have infinite treasures, infinite creatures, infinite upset opponents.
yeah. So the next one I got is in my Archaeos deck, which is my green, black, blue lands matter deck. So it's going to be Kadama of the East Tree, which is 4 green, green, reach. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield. So him paired with Tireless Provisioner, landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield underneath your control, create a food or a treasure token. Plus Tatiova Benthic Druid, which is landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, gain 1 life and draw a card. So essentially, with those 3 creatures out, whenever I put a land into play, I'm going to get to draw a card, create a treasure token. When I create a treasure token, Kadama will trigger, so I get to put another land into play from my hand. So it goes until you run out of lands in your hand, but because you keep getting to draw a card with, Tatiova, there's a pretty good chance you're about to dump out most of the lands in your deck, if not all of them.
Right.
And so that will allow you to kind of get super ahead. And then the big combo that I have with that is there's one more card you can put, Archelos himself, which is lands, permanents when they enter the battlefield. If he's untapped, come in untapped. If he's tapped, they come in tapped. So when he's untapped, you use those bounce lands that when it comes into play, you have to bounce a land back to your hand. Well, you just tap for 2 and you get to put that land back in your hand. And now you're creating mana that's floating. And you just keep putting that one land back out over and over again because it keeps bouncing itself.
Right.
And then you literally can draw your whole deck that way. So it's 4 creatures to get that combo to go off. But if you get it, it's just super fun because you're just getting to create infinite mana. You create infinite treasures. And then you can basically cast everything in your entire deck.
Right. So that's a good one. And these were all just examples. There's a lot of combos you can do. There were EDH Rec will now show you combos in your commander decks. There's Commander Spellbook, which is a website that's all about EDH combos.
Yeah, and you can look up specifically like combos for and type in your commander, Prosper, combos for Calamax, combos for Archelos, and there will be a bunch of websites that come up. And there's even some websites when you click on it, they actually show you a step-by-step, here's how you do the combo. Step 1, you do this, step 2, you do this, step 3, you do this, and they tell you you need this mana available in order for this combo to work and have these cards in your hand or on the field. Like it tells you that the whole setup and everything, which is pretty cool. So there's definitely resources out there for you to find combos. Do be wary if you're looking at a combo and it's like 3 mana to have it go off and it only requires 1 thing. Probably more competitive.
Right.
Like Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation.
If it's an instant win.
Yeah.
If it's doing something that's like gross but not going to win you the game, then
you're probably okay.
By the way, if it's unlimited mana, it's gross.
Yes.
If you do Thassa's Oracle with Demonic Consultation, that's 3 mana and you win the game immediately. So things like that, obviously be wary when you're looking them up because there's a good chance that a lot of people would consider that a CEDH win. But there are plenty of fair combos like we mentioned.
And we won't go through any more combos, but just 2 other cards to watch out for, Earthcraft and Deadeye Navigator. Go look them up. You see those cards, you're about to get comboed.
Yep, for sure. So, just some ideas you can put in. Again, you got to have win cons in your deck no matter how jank it is. So
yeah, please build with a way to win.
Yep, for sure. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a new obsession I have within Magic. We already have talked about my cardboard crack addiction.
Yep.
I have not yet found a cardboard crack anonymous meeting going on, so I will continue to struggle with my addiction. But now I have another addiction within that addiction, and that is artist proofs. Artist proofs is something I recently learned about. I knew what they were in other fields for whenever art's produced, an artist gets a sample to kind of show proof of concept. Magic uses it a little differently. They allow the artist a certain number of artist proofs whenever they print their art. It's part of the payment, I guess, like a contract. And so the artist can choose how many they want and whether they want foil, non-foil, both. Whatever.
Right.
So each time a card is reprinted, they get more opportunities. So when a card's reprinted, the rarer ones, the first ones are the more valuable. But what's cool is, so there are a card on the front. These are not tournament legal, but on the front looks like the normal card, but on the back is plain white. And what's often cool is to get the artist to either do a sketch or maybe some art, a colored art on the back.
Right.
Either a painting or a colored drawing. And then they usually will sign the front if you ask. And many of them will number them so you know how many of them there were from this particular set. And I have had a ton of fun finding artist proofs for some of my favorite commanders. I've got one for Jingataxius by Eric Deschamps. I've got one for there is not one available for Norin. The artist has said she may at some point release those. She has them, but she's not releasing them.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's one I want to get if it ever becomes available. But I am going to send a card to her to be autographed because she will do that. So I'll get Norin autographed.
Okay. Which, by the way, does not destroy the value of a card.
Well,
It does
and no.
not.
So hold on. By straight value, yes, it does. Because once it's signed, it's only valuable to somebody who is willing to pay it. Unless you have a certificate or something to prove who signed it, some people are not going to want to take that chance. And by TCG standards, it is considered damaged. If you send it to TCG, it is a damaged card.
But you can also put cards. TCG is probably not the best place to sell these cards, but you can get your cards
They
signed.
have a value.
There are views out there, and I've heard people say, "Oh, now it's worth nothing." That's absolutely not true. Signed cards many times can be worth much more than unsigned cards. If you want to get your card signed, it does not automatically destroy the value.
And so I will tell you too, the other cool thing I learned when I got into this,
getting it signed by random people.
So Heather Hudson's the artist who did Norin the Wary.
Yeah.
She does not charge for signatures. She will do up to, I think, 6 signatures for free that you send her. She just asked that you would provide a self-addressed stamped envelope for each card you want.
You might get a nasty letter from her. If enough people email her now.
I'm just saying, I didn't give her address or anything.
That's true. She lives at no.
But a lot of these artists will, and the arts will normally they will charge you if you want art on the back, if it's an artist proof or whatever. So 2 of them I just got, which I will post the pictures to the website. I haven't shown you guys yet. I'm going to show you after this. I just had my wife, because I forgot to bring them. I had her send me the pictures. But I got Jace Bellerin Planeswalker with a really cool full sketch on the back of Jace Bellerin.
Nice.
And then...
do you mind sharing how much something like that cost?
So for Jace Bellerin, I believe it was $150, which I thought was very reasonable because some of these cards go for way, way more.
I mean, that can be reasonable, but that's pretty expensive.
It is, but I mean, some of the rarer ones can go for thousands of dollars.
I bet. Yeah,
I mean,
who knows? Jace may end up being worth thousands because, guys, there's a lot less of these than a regular card. But they're not tournament legal either, so that makes it kind of difficult.
But in casual play, you can certainly play them. They look like a normal card. They have all the normal
I played
writing.
gold bordered cards.
But the other one, another deck I've been playing is Lisa, Shroud of the Dusk. She's a white-black commander, and I've been having a lot of fun. I love this deck, and I just got an artist proof of her. And again, I paid for the sketch on the back, and the artist did a really cool full sketch on the back.
That's sick.
And yeah, it's awesome. I'll show you guys. I'll post it to the website.
It's one of the coolest things you've collected, I think, and I'm really interested in getting into it too.
Yeah, it's really cool. And what I've loved is some of these artists are so cool about this stuff. Like occasionally you can find an artist who may do a quick sketch for you for free. You know what I mean? It really depends. I'm not going to say I've never had it happen, but I have heard stories and I've seen it.
Yeah, I bet it happens. Yeah.
Right. But if you're at cons and you see these, and here's what bothers me now. I've been at the cons, and while I respect the artists, I didn't have artists I particularly... Tyler Walpole was the one that I really geeked out over, and I loved his art, and I loved at the time the Dungeons & Dragons Secret Lair had just come out that he did, and I was really into that, so I had him sign, and I really interacted. But other than that, I haven't really gone and sought out these artists,
Yeah.
I'm going to be much more interested now. They usually have these artist prints with them for,
and they deserve that.
yeah.
These guys are talented people.
They're the reason we have this game. If they just printed black and white cards with the words on them, we would
Some
not
people would be
playing.
interested in that, but just like I did in one of my sessions, I think aesthetics is important.
It would not have lasted this long.
No, because people do care about the way things look.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I never cared too much about foil and stuff, but I love artist proofs. I just think it's a very personal, very real, very tangible. And these cards are rarer than a lot of the serialized cards. Serialized cards may be one of 500. These artist proofs
you're getting into collecting art.
Right.
That's what you're doing. So
yeah, they're like prints.
yeah.
You know, it's really cool. It's a lot of fun. I've had a ton of fun, and you can get into it not expensive. There are artist proofs. You can buy an artist proof signed by the author, $20, $25, $15, $10.
Yeah. And by the way, if that artist ends up doing more than magic, becoming quite successful, and you have a sketch on the back of a card, that's an original sketch.
Yeah.
If that person becomes very successful, and then unfortunately, I know it's not nice, but in art, this is the way it goes. If they die, it becomes worth an insane amount of money.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is some artists only work with magic for one set.
Yeah.
So that is the only art they did for it. And those cards, if people like that artist, they're more sought after.
Yeah.
Those cards are going to be worth a lot more money.
100%.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing is too, even with the artist proof, like even if they had 15 of them, right? You still might get a 1-of-1 because he did a unique sketch for you on the back,
no, that
right?
makes it totally unique.
Even
I'm
if
saying
it's
even with-
15 artist proof versions, right?
Yeah.
You could still have a 1-of-1 because he gave you a certain sketch that he didn't give anybody else.
But here's
so.
the thing: if you could have
cool.
a magic card, people freak out about it's 4 of 500. What about 4 of 50 or 4 of 20?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot of these artists, like I said, will number them.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a really
just
good point.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely think, if I have a commander like my ninja commander, like I might seek one out for her because I really do love her and I've had her for years now and I just keep updating her and I love playing that commander. I think that'd be a cool one to get it for.
Usuri.
Usuri, yeah. You are more obsessed with my Usuri deck than I am, I feel like.
Well, it's just the most fun deck I think you have.
It's a fun deck for sure. I like the turtle deck because it's so oppressive, just making everyone tap planeswalkers.
But so just something to make you aware of. I was not aware these existed. I think it's a really cool aspect and something some of you may be interested in getting into. Just don't outbid me on some of these cards.
Yeah.
But thanks everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I want to thank Jack May at Info Pilgrims for editing and producing and just being a great guy. Please reach out to us, cast@commanderspod.com. We'll answer any questions you have, if you have ideas, whatever. You can also check out our website, commanderspod.com. Please check out our Patreon. We are very thankful for our Patreon supporters. That's at patreon.com/commanderspod. And remember, everybody, kill Andrew first.
If you can.